in a moment. Well, welcome everyone. We are here with Ashley and George. And George and Ashley, I'll let you introduce yourselves, but you guys are doing great work as the CERT people for the Hamann Park area. Even though you're not technically in Hamann Park, you guys are the leaders, and that's very key in today's world with the pandemic that we're facing now. So why don't you, if one of you want to take the lead and kind of tell us what CERT is?
Ashley, you want me to do that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so what CERT is it is a group of volunteers that have trained in order to be available to help as first responders in an emergency. We are not going to rush into burning buildings or anything like that, but mostly we're trained to assess whether or not a incident is something that can be handled by us or can be handled by the first responders, a fire people or police. Mostly what we're trying to do is to prepare ourselves, to help our neighbors, to help our community. And there's about 200 of us in Campbell. And I think that the Hamann Park is, what did I say, like
36
people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. If you want to go into, we're basically there until the first responders arrive. And then we can assist if they need it, if they ask for our assistance, but we are not, like Ashley, we are not a EMT type of a person.
Yeah. And Ashley, why don't you tell us, you responded to my query about this idea of creating block captains. We'll talk about that in a moment, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in this?
So I am a firefighter EMT up in Daly City, but I live next to 17 and Hamilton. Like I'm right there on the other side of the park. I live on the other side of the overpass that you walk down into the park from. So when we walked by Isabel's house with her dragon in the front yard with our dog, she started talking to us about CERT. And we were like, oh, we've wanted to do this. And we like this neighborhood anyway. We're always here. We're always here. So we'll join this one since San Jose at the time wasn't really doing too much with CERT. And the appealing thing is that if I happen to be home when disaster happens to strike, like an earthquake or something of that nature, we're super close to, like, we have a great command post out of Hamann Park, out of the little clubhouse that's over there by the playground. We've got a bunch of gear set up. We have a bunch of really active volunteers in the Hamann Park neighborhood. And so I think the whole draw is that when disaster hits and the 911 system is overloaded, then we're going to be able to have boots on the ground who are trained in what to look for to stay safe, but also what to look for what's not right here. Is there the smell of gas? Is there houses that are clearly off their foundation, or are there little signs that we've been trained that tell us we need to make sure people don't go into that area because something's not right? I think it's really helpful, and it should really make the neighborhood in Hamann Park feel really proud and really relieved that we've got so many folks in that neighborhood that want to be involved, and they're getting involved.
So it sounds like people of all abilities really can get involved. You don't have to be a superhero. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead, George.
No, I would say, yeah, we have, I'm going to talk about Campbell CERT in general in this particular question. We have people that are young and able and can, get out there and, tote the line or whatever. But we also have a lot of people like me and, the retired community, people that are still active, but, we're getting up there in age. And then we have some people that are a little less capable of, carrying somebody on a stretcher, but could certainly sit down and work a radio. And that is one of the things that CERT is going to do in any emergency, is that we are going to establish a radio network that allows people to communicate when cell phone towers are down.
And it seems like that's a big part of it. And I'm kind of scrolling through the website here, but it is kind of this neighborhood by neighborhood basis of communication, right? So when you talk about what we've been talking about, Ashley, the whole idea of kind of organizing on a block by block basis, how is that helpful to kind of CERT?
Well, in the event of a disaster, one of the first things we do after we've set up our command post is we send out sort of reconnaissance teams, if you will, people who go out, groups who go out and they walk the neighborhood and they methodically go house by house, figuring out if anyone needs help in those houses. So having block captains who don't necessarily have any CERT training, you may, but you might not, being able to have contact info for all of their neighbors. If we have the block captains try to get a head count or try to get a list of known needs, like, oh, my neighbor at such and such address on my block will be out of oxygen, O2, that they need. They need a new bottle by tomorrow. Like, do we have a way to facilitate getting that? And we would be the people who would hopefully be able to help in a disaster when phone lines are down or whatever, to get in contact with folks who could get those needs to the block, to the neighborhood. And if those needs are already known, because the block captain is keeping track of stuff like that, then and already has an open line of communication with their neighbors, just that small group of neighbors on their block, that's huge. Because then even if we only have like 3 block captains that are being active, that's 3 blocks that we don't have to search as in depth because it's already been handled by the block captain. So in terms of head count for who's there and who's can't be gotten a hold of.
Yeah, so, I just want to chime in. If the block captain knows that there's a family of 4 that lives in a house, that's really valuable information to a CERT member that's coming up and doing an evaluation of, well, is there a possibility of somebody in that house? So, yeah.
Who needs help? Who is not able to get to the door? Yeah.
Right.
Like
and that kind of ties it back to what we've been doing here with this pandemic, the idea of if we can know our neighbors, that'll help in times like this, which are kind of a slow moving emergency, I guess, not the kind of thing that you probably are used to preparing for with CERT, right? I mean, normally is it probably just a sudden event.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we'll have those links below if you want to sign up to become a block captain. And then Ashley and George, I assume that we can somehow do some more coordination and get information out about CERT to the folks who are in the block captains as well as Hamann Park.
Absolutely. And the CERT Academy, the classes are shut down right now because of what's going on. So when that opens up again, we'll absolutely make sure that you have the links and the info on your website. George, were you going to say some details about what the training is?
No, I wasn't.
The notes you put in the email. So it's the 2 weeks worth of academy with a couple of weekdays and one weekend. With the weekend being like the big graduation and demo, the test kind of thing. That everyone works together for. It's not like you have to try to peek over for notes on someone's written or something. But there is a written, but I'm sure it's great. At any rate, it's not like it's like a year-long training commitment, but it is something that gives you a heads up in things like basic first aid and triage, which is something that we would hope that the CERT teams would be able to help out with, especially in, say, an earthquake, where there's maybe a lot of people or a group of people who need medical attention, and being trained on how to sort who needs the attention first and then who can wait a little bit longer kind of thing. That's a big deal because if there's that way we know who to get the 911 folks to immediately. But also things like cribbing, things like radio communications, stuff that helps you stay informed and stay in touch with your neighbors in the event of an emergency. It helps bring the stress level down a little bit to already know how to do those things. But since it's only a 2-week course, we also, especially with Hamann Park, we do a lot of workshops throughout the year, totally voluntary, but for the folks who have graduated from the CERT Academy and who are in our neighborhood, HP CERT, Hamann Park CERT, they come out and we practice all the stuff that, like, we got together at the beginning of the year this year and said, okay, what do we want to work on this year, guys? And they came up with a list of things that have us busy for every other month doing something. For instance, in April, it was going to be in person, but we're looking to move it to virtual with what's in your go bag and what's in your CERT bag. And that's, I mean, even though, like you said, this isn't like a single event that everyone's coming together for in this region, it's like worldwide. So it's a very different situation. It still is, if people need help, it's good to be able to have a spot where they know they can go to get that information. So I like what you're doing with the Hamann Park Neighborhood Association website, trying to make it like a bit of a hub. And I hope people are checking it out and checking out these videos and looking to check in on their neighbors while still keeping distance and, being smart about it,
Well, yeah, and I think you're right. I think a lot of it is already happening. People are checking on the neighbors and stuff. So I think to some extent, it's just a matter of making sure we kind of get organized a little bit. So, things can flow both ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate both your time and, of course, your effort, your volunteer effort to help make our area a little safer. And again, the links will be below. So thank you both.
Right on. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
See you, George.
Bye-bye.
Let's see. I stopped